What were you noticing? Like, what did you experience that kind of, I'm assuming this was not just something that like an apparition just smacked you over the
Yes,
head,
it was.
immediately. I mean,
Yes, it was.
was it, okay, tell me
It
about
was an
that.
apparition that smacked me over the head. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to a sound healing workshop by my wonderful teacher out in Northwest U.S. Off of Seattle, and I used that experience with him to basically scrub everything out. And I went into the meditation, and in the meditation, I received the answer. And it surprised me so much that and it was such a high vibration response that in my mind's eye, I fell to the floor, prostrated myself, and out of me, not from my mind, but out of me sprang the words, "I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will."
You're listening to The Thinning. Let's see what opens up. Hope, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Stephen. I'm very happy to be with you this morning.
Yeah, we've got a lot to get into. I'm very curious about a lot of things that you posted in your profile, and things that you work on, that you live through, and some of it touches my experience throughout my life, and some of it doesn't. And I think that's the good stuff. That's where I get to learn, and that's really what this whole thing is about. It's this podcast is a very self-indulgent kind of effort. Just it's for me, right?
I
And
love
if
it.
anybody else kind of gets into it and gets some benefit from it, yay! But I'm really curious. I mean, right up front, you've let me know that putting your name at the center of your work is really not what it's about, because it's not about you,
Correct.
and I really appreciate that. I mean, where did that instinct come from, and what feels at stake when it does become about the teacher rather than the stuff?
Well, that's a great question. I have been studying for decades under different teachers, whether it was just through reading uh, many of their books or actually going and studying with them in person. And I know the feeling when a charismatic leader passionately, explains whatever their message is spiritually, and one can get swept away by the personality and project onto that personality. And I'm speaking from experience, um, more than perhaps they should have on them. I I think many of us have fallen into that. It's not that the teacher is not worthy of our respect and devotion, but to me, it's always about the message. And I've learned that over time. And we've all seen experiences of great spiritual, so-called spiritual leaders who have turned out to have great inconsistencies in their personal lives. And you go, wait a second. So when the time came for me to become that person, I was incredibly reluctant. Because I knew from my own experience what can happen. I didn't want people projecting on me. I didn't want to be anybody's so-called guru. So the fact that my name is Hope, carries a certain energy with it and a certain
Right.
expectation. So you double that with being in this leadership role, and it can get confusing quickly.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Steve Martin, so that carries a bit of energy with it as well, albeit a little different. I like yours better. You've used the word projection a couple of
Mhm.
times, projecting, and I think that's a psychological concept that those of us who've been in helping professions, through the years we kind of have to be aware of. Can you tell me what that word means to you?
Yeah, it's when you place or displace something that might be better suited internally, and you put it on someone else. So you create a savior out of the person. But a projection can happen in many ways. It
Sure.
can also happen if I'm really upset about something, but I'm not finding a way to organize it within myself and work it through. I might bite the head off of another person's, uh, not literally, to and all of a sudden become very upset with them when really the problem is within me.
Of course.
So those are two examples of projections, and there are many more.
And this is again kind of a risk that you wanted to try to, or a dynamic that you wanted to try to avoid as much as possible. It's not really, I mean, you can't really have any control over what somebody else expects of you. So how do you manage that? How do you live that out?
Well, from the very first day that I was started teaching this technique, this technology that I hope we'll get into, um, I made it very clear that I have a mission as a messenger, and that's all it is. It is not about the messenger, and it's all about the material. So I've and um, it's it's really asked me to be specific about how I carry myself, the words I use, and really scrutinize if any ego gets in there. And I think at this point that it, I mean, it just doesn't happen. But in the beginning, I had to draw strict lines within my own personality about what was me and what was it, and meaning the mission. Um,
Sure.
and so, yeah, it was a very good growth opportunity into humility, because not that I haven't had that previously, but man, when you get a mission for something that's terrifying, you have no choice but to get on your knees in surrender and humility, and say, guide me through this.
Yeah, and how long ago did you make that transition into, being a student, from being a student into being a teacher?
15
How
years
long?
ago.
15 years, yeah. Yeah. So you've had some time to grow your chops and to learn about the pitfalls and everything. What's that journey been like over the last 15 years? I mean, just in, just your right off the top of your head.
Uh, it's been amazing. I mean, it's been incredibly stretching, deepening, uh, paranormal at times. It was usually, if I was starting to lose my, like, oh, why am I doing this kind of thing? If I start to lose my sense of direction, some kind of paranormal event would occur to bring me right back on the path. And
Dying to hear about that. Yeah.
so, I could never stray far.
Yeah, so I want to, before we get into, really a lot about the modalities, the frameworks, and what were you noticing? Like, what did you experience that kind of, I'm assuming this was not just something that, like, an apparition just smacked you over the
Yes,
head,
it was.
immediately. I mean,
Yes, it was.
was it okay? Tell me
It
about
was an
that.
apparition that smacked me over the head.
Okay.
Well said, Stephen. Um, well, no, I mean, what happened was, after, all these decades of spiritual study and so on, and I had been running not running it, but I had a group that would come to my house every Monday, and I have a bunch of sound bowls, and I would play the bowl, and we would meditate, and not to any words, just to the crystal bowl. And over time, I just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I had a really hard year in 2010, a very dramatically hard year. And I I knew that I was on empty, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's when it's danger zone. You might get sick, things can happen. So
Hmm.
I went to a sound healing workshop by my wonderful teacher out in Northwest US, off of Seattle. And I used that experience with him uh, to basically scrub everything out. I always say, clean my inner bowl. I scrubbed with the fervor of, of a, I don't know what, a floor cleaner. I just went after it. And in every practice, boom, 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 little by little, literally down to who am I? I mean, you could have called me any name. But the very last day, the very last practice, I had one question remaining about the events of that year and the significance. I had a very good question, and I went into the meditation. And in the meditation, I received the answer, and it surprised me so much that and it was such a high vibration response that in my mind's eye, I fell to the floor, prostrated myself, and out of me, not from my mind, but out of me sprang the words, I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. Because my
Okay.
gratitude was so great for this understanding and the lesson that it gave me. Of course, I was just sitting there on the bench quietly, but that was my experience.
And the skeptic would say, well, okay, you needed that experience, you made it up, it happened. You set yourself in a situation where something was bound to happen because you were so internally focused. Did you have any of those kinds of doubts? Did you have any kind of I mean, how can you tell the difference between self deception and something that's real like that?
Well, I felt entirely different. I felt clean, new. I felt in a way reborn, and it wasn't because this sound healer was saying anything. It wasn't his words. It was that I was working on myself in all these practices. So what I came out as I said, I mean, you literally could have asked me, called me any name, and I probably would have answered because I searched. I was like, what about this thing that used to hurt me? And what about that thing that, the stories we carry? And they just had no charge at all. I had cleaned house and
Yeah.
I felt amazing. I felt so free. It's incredible.
Did you want to just tell everybody about it,
No,
or were you cautious?
no, it was more like a very private
Okay.
metamorphosis. And I was so happy about it because, boy, yeah, the things that we carry, the stories we carry, are often so dense and heavy that we don't realize how much they are weighing us down. So,
And I think a lot of us can point to those kind of big experiences that we have that really send us on a different direction. I definitely have had a couple of those throughout my life, and very much in a very kind of institutional Christian framework.
mhm.
But then there become I remember when I was in college, big transformational experience. Just like I asked a question, the answer came. Life was totally different after that. Just completely, completely different. And I was like, hey, cool. This is available all the time. I can do this anytime I want. And I realized that no, that's not the way it works. At least for me, it wasn't. It was like, I can't go to that well every day. I can't go to that well every week. It might happen, one big time and then never happen again. And it's all about picking up subtle clues and, things like that. Can you talk to me a little bit about your experience in that regard? I mean, has it been kind of really big things all along, or has it been a big thing, a series of small, that kind of, what I'm
Yeah,
asking?
yeah. Well, yes, I'm going to answer that a little differently
Okay.
because what I need to tell you is what happened 3 days after that last
Thank
practice.
you. Yeah.
And
Okay.
I came home feeling light as a feather, free as a bird, all those great metaphors. And you asked me if I told anybody. Well, I had one of my closest friends come over on that third day because I did want to tell her because she was an explorer. She was and a wonderful person and knew me very well. And so I knew I could trust her with my experience. She was sitting in the living room. I was walking across the living room, starting to talk about my experience. And I was stopped still in my tracks because right in front of me, I perceived a giant wave, a beautiful color, curling wave, moving towards me slowly. So it was active. And there was a byline, a kind of a ticker tape thing that I could perceive running across it. And basically, it said this wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet. It's going to circle around the planet during 2011 and anchor in at the end of the year. If you want to experience this evolution smoothly and easily, then learn to surf it, learn to swim this wave. Better than resisting, which will knock you down as it usually does at the beach if we resist a wave. So then the wave turned on its side, and now it looked like a giant letter C. The curling wave looked like a giant C, and you'd expect a surfer to come through, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in this position, the message was as the water moves away from the shore and deepens into the seabed to get its energy to create the crest, that's the physics of a wave, so should you, meaning me, but really meaning all of us, leave your book learning on the shore and go to the earth and go to the wisdom keepers of the earth for your knowledge. And then instead of the water of the wave just falling down into the ocean like it usually does, it turned into a standing figure eight of flowing water. And there was no explanation. And it hung out about 18 inches high, about 18 inches away from my eyes. And I was perceiving it. And I'd never had visions before. So I was also kind of observing myself having a vision. You know, am I seeing with my eyes?
Right. Right.
What am I seeing with? Because it wasn't my eyes necessarily. It was another way of perceiving, but I could see it. Um, anyway, that figure eight of flowing water kind of kept in my kind of see-through-y kind of thing for about 3 days. And then it got a little annoying. So I sat down with my dowsing rods because I've been a dowser now for over 30 years. And by then, 15 years. And I started to ask questions about what this thing was and what is it? What am I supposed to do? So I'm paused there because that was a rather dramatic event that ultimately changed my life. I have had other dramatic events happen, nothing quite so as that. Although, well, I can't really say that. There have been other things. But along the path of this, in speaking about going to the well, I became a channeler. Okay. I didn't trust channeling up until this point. I've listened to many channels in the past and I found them, interesting. But I always understood that the information is coming through the waffle field of a human energy system. And so things could get distorted. Their personalities could shape
Sure.
etc. I almost always found a nugget that was, oh, that's good. That's truth. But I was hands off on that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I'm going to jump back to dowsing with this figure eight. And what I was told in my dowsing explorations was that we could call this figure eight of flowing water the infinity wave. That inherent in the watery flow, and it's water for a reason, and it's the figure eight or the lemniscate, the infinity sign, for a reason. So the geometry and the water matter. But inherent in the watery flow was a very high octave of love and compassion. 10th dimensional is what I was told. Okay, we don't have to get hung up on dimensions, just extremely purified.
Say it, yeah, just to say it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it was big.
It was refined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not emotional. So refined that it was without emotion, pure. And so what we were being given was a tool to help us stay flexible, stay wavy, stay fluid while we're dealing with this push of evolution that was coming. And then I was told that I needed to create workshops and tell the world about this.
Okay.
And I was living next to a sheep farm in Western Massachusetts. Like, I was not set up for this at all. And I basically said no. But then they reminded me that I had said, I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. And I had to gulp and say, oh, because of all the things we talked about earlier. So I didn't know what I was teaching. I've been a teacher, I've been a leader, I've been a director, I've been a lot of things. But when it came to spirituality, I really liked to be quiet in the back of the room and under the radar kind of thing.
Right.
So this was a push in the back of my behind to say it's time, and you need to teach workshops. And I said, well, I don't know what I'm teaching. Now this is going to bring me back to the channeling part, because I would sit down with that same friend who witnessed all of this. I told her what I was seeing, the whole thing. So I thank God I have a witness. Otherwise, I would have thought I was losing my mind.
And she was a trustworthy
Very
witness. I mean, she was a person you could completely be vulnerable with and
Absolutely.
trust, and know that you were safe in that place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So she would come over. I booked a room end of January 2011, and I said we're going to have a 3-day workshop, and I don't know what I'm teaching, but I think something big is coming in. And I would sit with her once a week, and I would get my dowsing rods out, ask questions to get some sense of what to do. And instead, all of a sudden, these deep, slow voices would come out, and entire practices or meditations would pop out, much to my amazement. And I just, whatever. And so we would gather 3 of those together. And then I started working with, talking about spiritual evolution, and which we tend to think of evolution as happening slowly in the background, but
Yeah.
it's happening very quickly now. And the
Yeah.
idea was that we could become very conscious in the here and now of our evolution. And that's what this infinity wave was meant to help us do. So,
If it's okay, I'd like to kind of draw us back to a couple of things that again I need definitions on. I need an understanding of, and I will confess to you that where one of my understandings comes from. Okay, when we talk about dowsing, of my generation, we learned about classical music from Bugs Bunny, of course. We learned about the great classical works of music through, the parodies and the stuff that was going on in Bugs Bunny. Likewise, my frame of reference for dowsing is Gilligan's Island. I don't know if you know that reference or you get it at all, but there was, they were looking for water, and and Gilligan had a divining rod, and Skipper was a skeptic, etc. And hilarity ensues, right? But that's really about my only. I have one other experience with it, but we won't talk about that just yet. What does it mean? What is this dowsing thing that you're talking about? Can you describe it? Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there are many dowsing tools. So the one that Gilligan used was just one.
Yeah.
And you can make dowsing rods, so they're called L rods, out of coat hangers. You just cut them into an L shape and hold the short end, and off you go. There are also pendulums. Lots of people have pendulums of all different materials, stone and wood, metal, etc. Even just a needle on the end of a thread or a necklace. So, but the technology, I call it a technology because it's the ancient technology of finding water, finding minerals, uh, but also, and many other things, but also tapping into higher intelligence. So you can communicate with the dowsing tool that you have with anything. You can communicate with bodies of water, with rocks, with trees, with animals. And it's a way of just receiving information that we can't get with our logical brains.
How does it look? What is
Well,
it? What happens? Yeah,
are we on video?
we are.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I just happen to have a pair of my little dowsing rods right here.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And so I'm sorry, I hurt my thumb, so pay no attention to the big blob there. If I say, please show me a yes, the rods move in like that. Now,
Uh
you
huh.
see there's a sleeve here so that
Right.
they
Okay.
operate independently
Okay.
of my fingers. Then I say, please
Yep.
show me a no, they go out. Okay,
Okay.
you see that?
Okay.
So I can say, am I now speaking with Stephen Martin? Yes, I am. Am I now speaking with Douglas Pepperbed? No, I'm not. So you can check your dowsing by just asking silly questions like that. I actually have a dowsing course that I'm about to announce. But that I want to show you something because I don't I do have a pendulum. So here is an example of a pendulum. Okay.
Okay.
And the other side is also a pendulum. So I can
Okay.
hold either one. Let's see which one is easier to see. I think this one's easier to see. And with this, you say, please show me a yes. And mine does a clockwise turn like that. You can see my hand is moving a little bit, but it's more in response to the swing than anything else. Now, if I say,
Okay.
please show me a no, then it's going to go counterclockwise. And if I say, please show me a vigorous no, you'll see that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I even hold my hand to make sure I don't affect it. You see, it gets bigger and bigger, and it'll keep going until it hits me in the face. So,
Okay.
the thing about pendulums is that you are really relegated to yes and no questions and answers. But
Okay.
with dowsing rods, there are nuances. So I could ask a question and it might only go to 50%. Well, that makes me sit back and go, okay, I need to come at this with other ways, other questions. Does that mean that it's a question of time? Maybe the timing isn't right. Is it and you can go down the tunnel of all the ways to try to get at the answer. The beautiful thing about dowsing rods is that they're fast, they're nuanced, and they get you where you need to go quickly. So you also can use them, and this was how they were used in ancient times, to divine a path. So if you're a nomadic people, you're going to want to try to find potable water. You're going to want to find the easiest path over the mountains or through the woods. And the rods will literally guide you to do that.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
All right. So my experience. As a teenager, my brother and I are messing around with stuff. My dad was built model airplanes. We had stuff. We had materials all around, and among those big long pieces of piano wire, which was
Yeah.
maybe that big around. And we took two pieces of it. We made the L shapes, and we played around with it. And unbelievable. I think we were again following the example of Saint Gilligan, and we were looking for water. We found water pipes in the floor in the garage. We found water pipes that were underneath the floor, and you could walk over them, and the wires would cross. And I was not. And you walk back, and and then you walk forward. It was as plain as day.
Yeah.
Now that's the limited, and part of my history is that I grew up in a town where scientists galore, associated with the Manhattan Project. So it was just physicists and science. You can't make spurious claims in that town. It's just not in the it's not in the DNA. And so anything that was kind of paranormal, any kind of spooky stuff, it was really off limits. We didn't have anybody we could talk to about any of that. And yet, just a little bit of childish experimentation. It's like, whoa, what is going on, Hope? What's happening? What do you think is actually going on when those pieces of wire that's inert? I mean, I assume yours are copper. Does the material make any difference?
No, copper is very conductive.
And you've got it in a sleeve there, so you're not. It's not binding on your skin or anything. It's free to move, and therefore more sensitive to any kind of direction that's coming from who knows where. What's going on here? Help me out.
Well, I think it's so interesting that you come from a town full of scientists and you can't make spurious claims. If we go back 5,000 years ago, the science was dowsing.
Fair
The
enough.
science was dowsing.
Right.
Okay. So science has, so-called
Yeah.
modern science has usurped something that's
Yeah.
available to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because it's kind of, there are many things over the years that work medically and energetically that have been so poo-pooed by newer institutions. It's a shame because
Is there any place where the new story of science, of Enlightenment era scientific method, is there any place where they cross, where they converge in with ancient? I think that's the thing that I'm really starting to really pay attention to now. And I can, again, my own spiritual story is not so important, but in this conversation at least. But is there any place where those stories start to converge, where science starts to affirm, oh yeah, I mean, I'm really digging the conversations right now with Roger Penrose and the idea that quantum mechanics and stuff indicates maybe consciousness comes first in the universe and all matter grows out of consciousness. But I digress. Tell me,
well, for
tell me what's
me,
going on here.
I am very much in that camp. And
Yeah.
there are wonderful physicists. Nassim Haramein is one of them who's creating a quantum machine, basically. And his experiments are fabulous. He's a very spiritual person. And he's also a physicist,
Yeah.
There are people who have done studies. I can't put my finger on them right now, but the Noetic Institute has done a lot of experimentation on psychics and mediums and out of body experiences and near death experience. It goes on and on and on. And so there are many folks who have done experiments. The thing about
Sure.
dowsing is, when you walked across your garage floor and the rods are so clear. Like your mind,
Yeah.
the mind is the only thing that is resisting because the mind has already
Yeah.
been programmed in a certain direction. And so it's a question of opening the mind to all the possibilities. That's our job. That's really, to me, what awakening is: opening our mind out of the programming and into a much wider, infinite possibility. So that's one reason why the infinity wave came in, was to help us in that process. Because if we are in a time, I know all your guests and you probably also, understand that this is a very unusual time we're in. We're in a changeover time. We're in a flip time, flip the narrative time. And so the more we awaken to the freedom that's available to us by doing that, the better. So back to the question about circumstances, that strange things that happened, little things, big things.
Yeah.
After that, I dowsed for how the first workshop should be. And I was told 3 weekends. Can you imagine? One weekend a month. And, but to me, that was, are you kidding me? And I was so terrified to go into that first one. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Who am I?
oh,
What do I have
yes,
to say
yes.
about this? Yeah.
And
Imposter
what the heck
syndrome.
am I teaching anyway? But I cobbled it together because I have been a long time uh, student of spirituality and science coming together. So I was pulling in more of the scientific stuff and marrying it with the spiritual stuff and learning as I went, building the plane as I was flying. So right before the last workshop of the 3 weekends, so this would have been March. It must have been an early Easter. It was the Saturday before Easter. And I woke up, everybody was out of the house, and I was in a state. I was just bereft. I felt so much grief. I couldn't figure it out. And I just, in order to distract my mind and kind of get back on track, I went into my office, opened my computer, started to work, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing I knew, and this may sound whatever, but this is what happened. I was aware that Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Mother Mary were perched right here on my desk, like above me,
Okay.
there. And they were about this tall. And Jesus, who I now refer to as Yeshua, was almost mid sentence, as if we'd been having this chat for a long time, and
Okay.
was explaining to me, first of all, why I was feeling the way I was feeling, because it was because of a memory of that time, and the that was the nadir, the lowest point of fear and deprivation, of abandonment, because he said the whole family scattered to the four winds. So it wasn't just losing him, it was losing everyone else. So anyway, I don't know why. And I had been um, an admirer. I took Jesus's words to heart when I was growing up, but I could never get close to him. And I even went to a couple of houses of worship over the years to say, why can't I get close to Jesus? I don't get it. I love what he says, but I can't get in there. And so this was a shock to have him perched there. And of course, my first reaction was to bawl
Sure.
out of lack of worthiness and all that. But then we were
Hmm.
he's just chatting and telling me what he's up to. And anyway, that began a long 15 years of conversations, not just with him, but with other entities, beings, beautiful, light filled, love filled beings. And so when you talk about going to the well, I actually can go to the well whenever I need to because they are always there. And I think that's true for all of us. And occasionally, if we get off track, there will be that a situation. And if we're paying attention, we'll understand it as a directional arrow to go back to wherever our path was. So I don't know how that sits with people, but that was my experience and has been my experience.
Well, yeah, and to compare, I mentioned this experience I had in college. I was in a similar place where it's like, yeah, I know all this stuff. I've you know I find what Jesus says as true, as resonant, as in connected to things that I didn't know were within me, but and I remember having a conversation with my mentor, my spiritual mentor, who I was like, I just want to know it's real. I just want to know. I don't I don't feel. And he says, you want to know it's real? I said, yeah. And right then something happened, and I still words don't describe it, but it does. The only words I've found through my life to describe it is a sense of water pouring from the top of my head down through every cell of my body. And since then, there's never been a minute of doubt, not a second
There
of
you
doubt.
go. There you go.
And just, yeah, this is back to the beginning when you were, when I was first asking you about your time of transformation. Yeah, there's, it's true because it changes everything.
It does.
It changes everything. It doesn't make everything great. It doesn't, suddenly put you in this place of bliss. Although I was kind of in a place of bliss for about a week until, life kind of brought me back to earth. But there was that kind of transformational moment where, yeah, everything was different, and it was based upon an experience. When I was talking on a corded phone in my dorm room, and I was sitting on the floor in the hallway in the dorm, and heaven and earth opened up to me there. Great place for that to happen while talking on a nice old style, corded phone. Um, yeah, so I think I get it, but ever since then, it's been kind of like I don't know. Do you think people what limits us once we've had those kind of realizations? What for those of us who don't find it easy to go back to them and go back to that well easily? Is it because of trauma? Is it because of something that we have learned over the years that we can't trust ourselves? In your experience, what do you find is the thing that keeps people, who attend your workshops, et cetera, from breaking through and from drawing on it more? Or do they just start opening up and experiencing more when they hear what you have to offer?
Well, I would say we are programmed to rely on our linear rational minds.
Okay.
We are not programmed to rely on our imaginations or our feelings, our heart, our intuition. All of that is poo pooed, and it's from day one. So
Yeah.
that's number one. Number two is when we rely on our linear rational mind, that means we're relying on our intellect, and we're programmed to achieve through our intellect. So a pattern of achievement is set up. You are rewarded the more you know, okay? And the more you demonstrate what you know. That is the antithesis of spiritual exploration. Spiritual exploration involves being comfortable not knowing. If your brain is a bookstore and it's full of books, and I don't mean brain, I mean your mind. If your mind is a bookstore and it's full of books of all the things you know, where is there room on the shelf for something else, for for something new. So in a sense, we need to make room for the not knowing, for new books to arrive, new information to arrive. And even so, we are still processing, for the most part, through the linear rational mind. So this is where the word practice comes into play. It is through practicing not being in that mind and being in the don't know mind that it starts to become more habitual, that that is available to us, that actually it's much more fun and interesting to live in a don't know mind. It's spacious. Anything can happen. And once we start to get comfortable with that, I think breakthrough experiences are available. Having said that, there are so many stories about people who have had car accidents, bike accidents, some kind of dramatic thing happen. And in that moment, they have what happened to you in the hallway of your dorm. And they're not used to practicing, and they're not used to thinking about these things. Sometimes they are inhabited by another being. A wise ancient being comes in and starts talking through them, kind of like what happened to me, although he didn't stay. And these beings come in, and these humans are shocked because they don't know anything about that side of the brain and of what's possible. So it can happen, Shakti, in a moment, can happen like that. What I've found, and I spoke about the achievement part, because often I have found, and I did it too, I have found that when we go into the world of spirituality, we bring with us this idea of achievement. Oh, well, if I only learn how to channel, or if I only learn how to, levitate, or if I only learn how to, these are kind of fruits, to be plucked and to achieve. And it's not like that in spirituality. It's non-linear. It may be in your highest path and purpose to become a channel, and it may not be. But you keep practicing, keep opening, because something else is going to come in. Maybe you're going to start writing automatically. Maybe you're going to, I don't know, start talking to trees. It could be anything, but each path is so unique for each person. But it takes practice. So that's what I would say. So people who have come to my workshops have had breakthrough experiences in them, but not everybody does. But we just go back, chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water, keep at it, open mind, don't know mind. And the other piece of this is that for me, and I think for many, there's this aspect of surrender. And by surrender, I don't mean give up. By surrender, I mean give up control. Mm-hmm. Give over control to a partnership with fill in the blank, God, source, spirit, universe. Give over to the partnership. And that's where the trust is. I always say that the universe can't catch you if you won't fall, if you won't give that up. Yeah. Now, what's interesting, I can say from my own experience, is that I thought I had done that. And then I went to that workshop, and then I had my big surrender moment, realizing that I'd only surrendered partly. Yeah. Then I had another leap in my surrendering when I agreed to do these workshops and to spread the word of the infinity wave around the world, take my mission on, because I had no idea. I was in don't know. I really don't know what I'm going to teach. I said, put words in my mouth, help me out here, and I just went in like an empty vessel. I did. And words came out and things happened and people had a marvelous time and they got places with the practices that had been delivered. So I had no choice but to trust and surrender. And that's when things get really good.
Um, I want to talk for about 5 more hours. I have so many questions. I want to know though, about the experience in 2011 and the infinity wave and the transformation that was on the horizon then and what's going on now. And I'm sorry, but I don't see a whole lot of enlightenment going on right now. And I need you to help me out with that.
Mm, yes, I understand. Well, what happened in 2011 was that we finished that first workshop, and then I was told to run two more. So I was teaching one weekend a month from January through September. And people came back for second and third workshops because they were changing. The the thing about the infinity wave is there's something called I call it the daily wave, where you can use this figure eight of flowing water between two people or in a group or in oneself to keep oneself with love and compassion for ourselves first and foremost. Then if I wave with you, which I am right now, what I'm sending out, it's already in the water. I don't have to conjure anything. Out to you is coming this high octane of love and compassion. So what your field and my field are now connected in that field. So we're going to have an even better conversation than we're already having. Everything gets lifted. 3D is this linear, rational, and denser world. When you get above 3D, things start to lighten up a lot. When we have something so refined as this come in to the 3D, it's going to lift it. I'm not going to say where, I don't know. It's different in every case. But it's not going to stay firmly rooted in the density of 3D. It's going to open the mind. It's going to open up possibilities. It's going to open the heart. Everything starts to be opened. Get new ideas, inclinations, do this, do that. It's also going to help get through the day. I'm going to wave the traffic in front of me. I'm going to wave that person who's having an altercation over there in the grocery store. I'm going to wave that little crying baby on the airplane. 1,001 uses for the infinity wave on a daily basis. And then there are the workshops, which when I looked back at the end of the third workshop, the first one, there were 9 practices. And I'm telling you, the things that came out of my mouth, I don't use that language. There were concepts that were brand new to me. But once I looked back, I went, oh my goodness, this is a step-by-step blueprint for taking an evolutionary leap. And that's what happened. People came in one way and they left completely different. I had people who were about to get a divorce who stayed married for years afterwards. I had people who were ill who got better. People who had no work got work as soon as, it was just an inside out kind of situation. So when we got to the end of the September, the 9 months, I was told to bring a group to England, and that's a whole story I won't go into. But when I want to just say that part of me, Hope, rational, feet on the ground, Hope, was standing there like a scientist with my arms crossed, watching this whole process, going,
Sure.
is this a real thing or am I completely insane? And I just kept seeing it. I kept rubbing my eyes and going, evolution is happening in real time. And it was happening to me too. So I was 90% there in believing. And then in early December of that year, I helped a friend out by being an advocate for her very serious surgery on her neck. And she had done all this preparation with hypnotherapy for surgery and had written down the things she wanted to have the anesthesiologist say when she went down and come out to program herself for better healing. So we were all set to go. She was in her cap and gown. We were right outside the surgery room, and we're waiting for the anesthesiologist who finally showed up. It was a woman, and she had a clipboard, and she had on this very odd surgical cap. It looked like, those pizza hats that puff out like that. It was like a
Yeah.
version of that. It was white, and it had little red flecks on it. Like, what happened to the standard green cap? It was just very different. And she went and stood opposite me. I was sitting at the foot on one side of the bed, and she stood opposite me, and my friend was there. And the woman just looked at her clipboard and started rattling off medicalese, never looked at my friend, never acknowledged. She was like a frozen human, all work,
Yeah.
a robotic. And I looked at my friend, and I could see her lips starting to quiver because so much depended for her. And she was already scared, right? And here,
Yeah.
this woman, she needed this woman to say, yes, I'll do this for you. And I looked at my friend. I saw her getting upset. And I looked at this doctor. And in the past, a year ago, I would have said, oh, doctor, would you mind? My friend is so nervous. Would you mind just, whatever. I would have said something like that. But I was different now. And I thought to myself, I don't like this picture. I want a different one. And almost like Tabitha, with a little nose. I said the words with no inflection, I like your hat. But out of my solar plexus at the same time was this pop. And her head bolted up like this. She spun to look at my friend. She said, hey, babe, how are you doing? I'm going to take such good care of you today. What do you have for me there? Oh, you want me to read this for you as you go out? Chatty Cathy, honey, sugar, like the most dramatic nanosecond change. And both my friend and I, our mouths, just went, what? Speaking of cartoons, like Wile E. Coyote with his eyeballs going out. And we just were like, what just happened? But I knew what just happened. And this is so important.
What happened?
The infinity wave is intelligent. It knows what is needed in the moment. What came out of my solar plexus was like a bomb, a blast of powerful love and compassion for who knows how many shifts this poor doctor had been on. Who knows if she had sick kids at home? Who knows why she was in her state? But when she got bathed with this powerful blast of love and compassion, she immediately rose to her highest and best self, who she really is. She needed it like a dry sponge needs water. And
Wow.
It wasn't my thinking, oh, I really want an infinity wave to go. And no, it has a mind of its own. And it did what needed to be done. And that brought me to 100%, knowing that this is a thing.
Time to wrap up. Last question. Well,
I didn't answer fully your other question.
Penultimate question.
Okay.
Penultimate question. Can we do this again sometime?
Of course.
Final question. When I messaged you about doing this podcast, did you douse the yes or no as to whether or not you should? Okay. Gosh, I was hoping you would say yes.
I don't have to douse about everything.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good intuition now. So
well, cool. I feel I'm honored by that, and I'm encouraged by that today. Gosh, Hope, thank you so much. How can we find out more about what you do, and the workshops and so on?
So everything, Facebook, website, YouTube, it's all under Spread Infinite Hope. So just look those, all one word, look that up and you'll find me.
Very nice.
To make it simple, Can I just do one
Yeah.
last little thing? Do we have time?
You met. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to just briefly address what's happening today,
Okay.
just so we leave on a really high note.
Yes.
What we're going through is a birth. And what you said was, I'm not seeing enlightenment. And that's a true thing. We're not seeing it because what we're being shown is the opposite.
Mhm.
And the opposite is being shown to us to keep us depressed and uneasy and anxious. The enlightenment is happening. I have communities of people that I interact with all the time. The enlightenment is happening. If you think of it like fresh green grass just poking through the rubble, you'll start to see it more. It's happening. And it's going to take a while, a little more chaos, a little more tumbling down of an older world that no longer serves for us to see it in broad daylight. But I just want to say every single person who's listening to this and is a lighthouse of some sort. And the more we can just attend to keeping our light strong, the faster it's going to happen. That's all I got to say.
Now, can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to. I just feel like this is important somehow. I spent 5 years of the last decade sitting on top of Capitol Hill in an office building, working in a nonprofit, a church-related nonprofit on Capitol Hill, and got very familiar with the ins and outs. You know, we'd see politicians walking by, we'd go to hearings, and just got to see the whole thing really up close and personal. And it was a terrible experience, a very difficult, very life breaking kind of experience. And so when I left that position, it was COVID. It was just this big grand reset, for me. And I got back into a bit of work that is based upon providing services for local congregations, because I love congregational life and find such value in that, even though I have such a love-hate relationship with the church overall. But basically, it was this kind of I've described myself as the prophet Jonah for years. I'm the reluctant prophet. I've got
Yes.
I got to get out there and say and then I've got to go retreat and pout under the tree for a while, and nobody's listening to me, and I've got to do that over and over again. But I leave that position. I retreat into just kind of doing basic service work for congregations. And I'm like, I'm out of this whole thing, this whole trying to change the world from the top kind of thing. I'm done with it. And then I moved to this little seaside community, Chesapeake Bay side community in Eastern Maryland, and we buy a townhouse, and right across, so it's right over there, maybe 100 feet from where I'm sitting, is a townhouse owned by the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. You know who that? I mean, do you know?
Yeah.
You know what that position is?
Yeah.
So the most conservative, the most MAGA-esque. He's right there. He goes to the pool that I go to. He's there all the time. And the other day when I saw a waft of smoke drifting from his driveway. I ran over there and talked to him about getting turkey smoking tips. He was smoking a turkey, and I'm like, okay, Jonah, you got on the boat. You said, I'm not going there, and then you leave, and then they throw you off the boat. The fish swallows you up, spits you right back out on the shore again. I don't know what I'm doing with this. It doesn't matter, but I'm definitely, I have made up my mind that there is no there's no good that can come from,
Yes.
shaking your fist at power. There is only good that can come from treating people like the human beings that they
There
are.
you
And
go.
I'm at odds with some of my neighbors in that I will actually have a conversation with Representative Harris, but that's my path. I'm going to do it. So
Good
anyway,
for you. Good.
weird. How weird is that, though? How weird is that to run away and try to get away from it? And of all places in the planet, here I land. What the heck?
Well, obviously, you put into your life plan before you came in that there was an issue with judgment that you needed to deal with, because they wouldn't keep planting these perfect experiences, opportunities, I should say, unless you planned it. You this is something you wanted to work on. That's how I view it.
All
You
right.
know what? Let's ask the dowsing rods.
Oh.
Can I, may I, should I? Yes. Okay. Is what I just said to Steve the truth? Is that what he, yes, that's the truth, man. There you go. All right, Jonah, go in peace, man.
All right. Hope, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. And it's been fun too, right?
Yeah, totally
It's
fun.
fun.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
enjoyed it. You're great.